Ladies and gentlemen, we've all seen the photo, so I need a show of hands. How many of you think that Racist Ralph Northam was the one in the blackface?
Who cares?
Now, how many of you think he was the one in the Klan hood? I need to ask, who is Ralph Northam's PR guy? Because that was the worst press conference I've ever seen in my entire life. Which advisor took him aside and said, Ralph, Governor, we've got a problem, okay? The blackface Klan photo is not playing well. You need to do a press conference, so here's what you're going to do, okay? You are going to admit that it was you in the photo twice. You're going to apologize. Then you're going to take back your apology. You're going to say you're not sure if it was you in the photo. And then, here's the kicker. You're going to offer to moonwalk. I wish that he had moonwalked, but he didn't. Ralph Northam, of course, is the man who wants to kill live-born babies, not just babies who are in the womb, which is bad enough. He wants to kill live-born babies. And I have to say to the governor, if you have an opinion like that, you should put a hood over your face in shame. So Ralph, of course, launched his racial listening tour of the African-American community, or as I call it, Ralph's Soul Train. But it didn't go so well because the historically black college that he was going to launch this at canceled him right away because they didn't want to hear what Ralph Northam had to say. The NAACP now follows Ralph Northam wherever he goes. The Virginia Democrats, including Fairfax and blackface Mark Herring, are raising no money. So the Virginia Republican Party has him fighting it now. Ralph Northam, it turns out, lives in a $1 million house in East Beach, and this house was built by condemning a historically black beach. So African Americans can't even go to the beach, their favorite beach, because Ralph lives there. Of course, his wife handed out cotton to black students as part of his apology tour. And on CBS News, Ralph Northam told Gayle King he called slaves indentured servants. Also not a very good thing, but because of this story, as Politico now reports, President Donald Trump has personally put the Commonwealth of Virginia in play in the 2020 campaign. Donald Trump will be running in Virginia, and he's going to win Virginia. Because, here's the secret, identity politics is all that the Democrats have. We have heard this for years. White people are racists, white men are racists, you're a sexist, you're a misogynist, you're a homophobe. Identity politics is all they have. But when we turn the identity politics back on them, the whole world realizes that they are the racists. Take creepy Joe Biden. The president calls him Sleepy Joe, I call him Creepy Joe Biden. Creepy Joe Biden recently bragged about how he went literally into the hood to teach African-American women how to code, and he noted that most of them only had GEDs, but he was very impressed with himself that he went literally into the hood. Wow. You have the young man Robert Francis O'Rourke, Beto, who was in the punk band Goat, and I encourage you to look at the photo of him in a skin-tight sheep costume. Or to read his poem, The Song of the Cow, by Psychedelic Warlord, which is what he was calling himself then, because he was in a hacker group. Reuters, of course, covered up that story while he was running against Ted Cruz because the mainstream media is complicit with the corrupt Democrats. Just like the Washington Post covered up the rape allegations against Justin Fairfax. The Washington Post interviewed Justin Fairfax's accuser, Dr. Vanessa Tyson, a Stanford fellow, and they interviewed Justin Fairfax. They had this story for years. They spiked it. The editors spiked it because they did not want it to get out, because they were running interference for the Democrats instead of reporting the news. So we reported the news. And it turns out that according to this woman, Dr. Vanessa Tyson, Justin Fairfax sexually assaulted her at the 2004 Democratic National Convention while Justin Fairfax was working as the body man for John Edwards. Shortly thereafter, a second woman named Meredith Watson came out, a former Duke University classmate of Justin Fairfax, and said that he raped her at Duke University. And according to Meredith Watson's attorneys, Justin Fairfax knew that this woman, Meredith Watson, had been raped before by another student, and that's the reason why he targeted her, because he knew that she wasn't going to say anything. So now Christine Blasey Ford's lawyer is against Justin Fairfax, and that doesn't bode very well for him in liberal circles. Christine Blasey Ford's lawyer now has an actual case. So she's moved up. Terry McAuliffe has called for Justin Fairfax to immediately resign, but Justin Fairfax, like blackface Mark Herring, like Racist Ralph, is still hanging on, and maybe that's better, because they're not raising any money, and they're a national embarrassment every single day. You have in your own backyard Ibrahim Samira, a man who was born to Palestinian refugees. The Palestinians love Ibrahim Samira almost as much as they love their man Justin Amash. And by the way, Justin Amash is going down in Michigan, thanks to our friend Jim Lower. Ibrahim Samira said that giving money to Israel is worse than giving money to the KKK, which Ralph Northam would know about. Ibrahim Samira said on Facebook that he wanted Ariel Sharon to burn in hell. Ibrahim Samira, obviously not a fan of Israel, and I take it probably not a big fan of America. But there is hope in the Commonwealth because Yasmin Taib, the radical Muslim state Senate candidate, lost her primary just last week. There is, of course, a Muslim infiltration of elected office here in the United States. You have Rashida Tlaib, who said that she was going to impeach that MFer, referring to our great presidents. It turns out that Rashida Tlaib actually lied about her address to run for office. She was representing a state house district in Detroit, but she was not living in Detroit. She was living in suburban Dearborn, and who called her out about this? Her own father. Just like Kamala Harris's father called her out for using Jamaican stereotypes about smoking marijuana. So, if your own father isn't even voting for you, you're not doing very well in politics. If your dad has to be like, I need to see the polls, I don't know, I'm undecided, it's not going too well for you. But here's the point, they want to call us extremists. They want to ban us from the internet, right? They want to ban us from Amazon, you can't have a credit card, you can't have a bank account, and all this stuff. But really, they are the extremists. Because they are the aggressors, we are simply trying to defend Western civilization from their attack on us. In every cable news split screen, it is based on a false tyrannical premise that puts the conservatives on defense. The liberal talking head will say, I think that we should take your guns away. And then the conservative says, no, I don't think you should take our guns away. Or the liberal will say, we want to raise your taxes, take more of your money. The conservative says, no, don't raise our taxes, don't take more of our money. Even if we win all these battles, we're still just back to the starting line. And so if the Republican Party is going to exist going forward in the age of our great President Donald Trump, they need to take his lead and go on offense for once.
Amen.
Because they are the radical extremists. Look no further than Yorktown High School in Arlington, where students in a physics class were told to write a biography of a famous inventor or scientist, but they were banned from writing about a white male. The teacher said that you're not allowed to write about white males because that promotes a Eurocentric view of the world, which is false. This is higher education now. They put our kids in story time rooms with drag queens. They tell them there's no such thing as male or female. These are 5-year-old kids. They tell them there's no such thing as male or female. This is psychological warfare. Can you imagine if Generals MacArthur and Patton were still alive and we had to brief them on what's been going on in higher education? General, it's worse than you even know. They've put our little boys in dresses, and I don't even want to tell you what they've done to our Olympic hero, Bruce Jenner. Not good, General. But the liberal hypocrisy is all being exposed. The Southern Poverty Law Center, for instance, is going down after we revealed that Morris Dees, the founder of this organization, tried to molest his stepdaughter with a sex toy, according to court records from his divorce. So he was fired, and the president of SPLC is also out. So this organization that goes around and calls patriotic conservative Americans racists it turns out that they're horrible people. I interviewed a black prison guard from Moore County Prison in North Carolina in the 70s who said that black prison guards were routinely shot at when they were standing guard by the Ku Klux Klan because the Ku Klux Klan ran the prison. And when Morris Dees took on this case, he completely watered down the story. He raised a bunch of money from Hollywood celebrities, but he only focused on one cross burning, and he never talked about the abuse that they suffered at the prison or all of this Klan harassment because the SPLC was trying to protect the Democrat Governor Hunt in North Carolina and the entire Democrat machine, because the Democrat machine has been based on racial politics for decades. Look no further than Silent Sam in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, which Antifa tore down. The press tried to pretend that this was a peaceful student protest, and they just tore it down, but it turns out that the Antifa cell that tore down Silent Sam is the same Antifa cell that was in Charlottesville. And it was led by a professor at the University of North Carolina named Dwayne Dixon, who admitted twice on videotape, including in a speech at Harvard University, that he waved a rifle at the driver, James Fields, right before James Fields plowed into that woman, Heather Heyer. So twice he bragged about the fact that he chased the driver down the street and made this whole thing happen, sacrificing one of his own people, Heather Heyer. So this group goes around and they pretend that they're peaceful student protests. And our public universities are allowing this to happen. They're allowing Antifa to go onto the campuses and put our kids in harm's way by staging violent riots on public taxpayer-funded property. At the University of North Texas, there was recently a lesson, and this is the new thing they're trying to normalize: sexual pleasure and response in infants, including a workshop on parent-child play. The textbook of this class encourages the students to go down to local preschools to observe the sexual interactions of preschoolers. This is what they are trying to normalize because there's an agenda at work. The Democrats are clearly the party of Satan. The Republicans are not quite the party of God, but they're a lot better than the Democrats. If you've heard about the Nexium sex cults, this is really the most important story about the border crisis right now. The Nexium sex cult leader, Keith Raniere, was just convicted of child sex trafficking from Mexico. It turns out that he was importing young children from Mexico to participate in rituals with him in this upstate New York sex cult. It came out at trial at Brooklyn Federal Court that this cult was bundling money for Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. The New York Times confirms that this cult had Chuck Schumer's financial records to blackmail him, and that Chuck Schumer was a friendly ally of the cult. Kirsten Gillibrand's father, Doug Rutnick, the lobbyist, was actually an employee of the cult who acted as a broker to Democrat politicians. And Kirsten Gillibrand's stepmother, who also happens to be her first cousin, was a member of the Nexium sex cults. There are now at least 4 women missing after they were involved in the Nexium sex cults. And we know now that the leader, Keith Raniere, referred to himself as Lucifer. He was a Satanist. And the reason that they were importing these children from Mexico was to participate in satanic rituals. Because satanic rituals, according to the teachings of Aleister Crowley, and according to spirit cooking, which we now know from the John Podesta emails, involves the sexual abuse and in some cases the sacrifice of children. That is what they do. And human trafficking is the reason why Democrats don't want to secure the southern border. They don't want a wall because they want little girls to continue to be pumped into this country, bound and gagged in the back of vans so that they can be sold as sex prostitutes as children in the United States, in addition to all the heroin that the cartels are pumping in. This is what the Democrats are trying to protect. Joe Biden's own daughter-in-law, Kathleen Biden, who divorced Hunter Biden, who then dated the dead brother's widow, has a group called the DC Volunteer Lawyers Project, which hangs out at courthouses in divorce cases. And it turns out that one of the lawyers for Kathleen Biden's group, where Joe Biden speaks, Joe Biden raises money for this group, propositioned a teenage boy in the bathroom of DC Superior Court right before he testified in a divorce case, slipped him his card, said he liked the cut of his jib, invited him to a party, and tried to lure him into male prostitution. When Kathleen Biden's group found out about this, they covered it up, and the media yet again spiked the story. So this is what we are dealing with. And in the last several months, because of all these stories and all this investigative journalism, I have been able to largely prove my point to America, which is that if you turn the identity politics back on them, you find out that we are not the extremists, they are the extremists. They are the racists, they are the rapists, they are the human traffickers, they are the baby killers, they are the Satanists, they are the party of Satan. And we had to defeat Robert Mueller, and we had to knock out the mainstream media in order to get to a point where the Republican Party can finally be on offense, and it is time for the Republican Party to follow the lead of our great President Donald Trump, go on offense, win the Commonwealth of Virginia, and win the White House yet again.